we're further on going on with the program, and I'll have I'm very happy to introduce the next speaker. She's a professor of international law, specializing in, among other things, human rights violations and international criminal justice. She has always aimed to translate scientific knowledge into real societal impact, for example, by consulting on behalf of victims at tribunals. She is coming from the flagship university of this city, Maastricht University, which is a very diverse and truly European university. Knowing it myself as well by attending it 2 years within my studies, a few years back in my student life. With further ado, I'd like to introduce you Rianne Letschert, the Rector Magnificus of Maastricht University.
Thank you so much, Tim, for this very nice introduction. And what a strange experience again, isn't it? Because I think all of us would have really loved you to be in Maastricht. I worked there now for 4 years, and I think it's one of the most beautiful cities in Europe, such a historical city. And I think Rianne said probably the most European city. I would say definitely the most European city of the Netherlands, where the Treaty of Maastricht was signed. And I'm also quite honored to be able to speak here for you. Although, again, I would have loved to be in a room with you and also be able to show you Maastricht and the beauty of it. But let's not get frustrated, because we live in this situation for more than a year now, and we need to stay positive. And as Rianne and Manu also said, we also want you to be able to make friendships and connections in a digital form. We've been able to do that also for the last year. And I think the topic of this youth parliament couldn't have been chosen better, because not only are you the digital generation, I think we're all now the digital generation. I'm actually fed up with Zooming the whole day. I'm in my home now. I'm actually living room, because someone is working in my work office, and my children are also around. So it could well be that in a few minutes during my speech, there will be a girl of 9 coming in asking me for whatever she should not ask in this moment, but you never know. They're not robots, these kids of 9. So I apologize already beforehand for any interruption from children. So this digital generation, I think Rianne mentioned in his movie also that you are concerned also about the quality of your education. And I'm the rector of one of the nicest universities in the Netherlands, and I'm also very concerned. And I think we've really tried our very best with our staff, both academic staff and support staff, to switch very rapidly to online education over a weekend, actually, almost a year ago now. And many times not in perfect conditions. As I say, we're working from home at some periods in the lockdowns, with also homeschooling your own children, and also trying to educate our students, and not in any professional studios, and not having all the didactical experience yet on what it is to do online education, because it's really something else. It's not just sitting behind a screen and just transferring knowledge. There's so much more to learn about digital education. And so I think we all did our best, and also our students did our best, because they also constantly had to adapt to patients, a little bit open, closed again. So we're all in this together. And I think the most important question also for you to discuss during your days here in Maastricht, or let's just pretend we're in Maastricht, is what we would like to maintain from this experience in this online education period. Because I've been doing a faculty tour for the last 6 weeks. So I've been zooming in different tutor groups in Maastricht. And what I've learned there from students is a few things that I would like to share with you. What I've learned first is that they very much prefer, or not prefer, they appreciate the flexibility that online education actually provides. Because many of them said that because of the formats in which we now teach, they can also combine that with other aspects in life, although that's not so much to do now, but also in the area, for instance, of some people told me doing some entrepreneurial activities. It's much easier to plan while you do also your online education. But the main thing that they really missed, and that is also really part of our problem-based learning in Maastricht, is the interaction with each other. is seeing also the body language, because also in Zooms, I'm looking at myself now, which is really terrible. It's really getting more and more frustrating to look at yourself all the time. And that's also what's happening in these classrooms. So you're not really seeing what the other person is experiencing and feeling. And also for some of our more introvert students, it's quite difficult to also be present in this digital environment. And also the interactions that you have outside of the classroom are crucial during your studies. It's not only about knowledge transfer and learning all the different courses that you need to learn and your exams. It's also about learning who you are, learning from other colleagues, from students from other cultures, having fun, drinking a beer in a cafe. That's really also very much part of growing up. And that's what everyone is missing. So if you ask me what is the future of universities, I would definitely want to think further about what technology enhanced education can bring to us, how it can enrich your learning experiences, because that's absolutely important. I think that we find the right mix, but I would, as a rector, as long as they keep me there, I would also strongly emphasize also the need to have physical education and physical interactions in this very short period of your time that you can be a student, because that ends at some point. And I can tell you, being an old lady of 44, it's really a very nice period to be a student. Not the way that you're doing it now, but if I look back at the way that it should be, it's such a wonderful period, also besides the studies. So I would always stress, any policymaker, make it also possible, also for us as universities, to keep that physical component in education. That's also why we're lobbying quite strong to open up the universities again, because in the Dutch situation, our universities are only opening now for practical education, so skills trainings and lab education and exams. Now in your program, you are also going to talk about both the positive sides of digitalization and also the negative sides. And I thought also to give you some experience that I was myself very much weighing the different interests. And I hope it's okay that I share it with you, because I also got a speech, but it's a very formal speech. So I thought it's maybe nicer to talk with you about these experiences, since you're also going to talk about that in this in your parliament. It's I think many of you have experienced the way that we are now conducting online examination, where we are, for many universities, are using proctoring software, where students are sitting at home and are doing their exams, and we have software that is monitoring whether you commit frauds. And that means that we're also very much viewing how you move, and if you move, then that can be detected, and that might be considered to be a fraudulent activity. And many students have told me that it's very intrusive, because it's also interfering in their private sphere, because students are also sitting in their home, in their rooms or in their apartments or with their parents. And it's also very stressful to realize that if you do a certain move, it can already be detected. And also the facilities of the software are not the same as, for instance, when you are doing an on-site exam. For instance, in many cases, you cannot look at the entire exam and then go back to the first question, or you have to start with the first question, then you go to the second, and you cannot move back and forth, because of sometimes technicalities, and sometimes also because that could also increase fraudulent activities. Now, when I was asked to find a solution for our big tests, so that's with more than 500 students, at some point we also had to rely on this software, and it was quite difficult, because we want to guarantee the quality of our degrees. So students also said, if Maastricht would choose not to have surveillance for the exams, what would then the outside world say, also the employment, the labor market, if they would know that Maastricht is not doing that surveillance? Because that would maybe put some questions to the validity and the quality of the degrees that Maastricht universities then gives. That also came from the student perspectives. On the other hand, we have this whole aspect of the intrusiveness and the privacy breaches. Well, in the end, I'll be honest with you, we chose for proctoring software. So many of our students had to, and still actually at this very moment. So that's weighing interests, guaranteeing quality of degrees and your future labor market potentials, and not wanting to put additional tension to students when they're doing their tests. And by the way, the logistics of this and the checking all the videos, it costs a lot of capacity of our staff, because that is then in the end checked by our staff. So it's actually a terrible solution. So if you also in your discussions, you come up with a better solution, I would be very happy, because I would be the first to look into that. But it's just for you an example, to show that this weighing of interest, student interest, staff interest, that's all part of our discussions as well. Being now also the digital generation myself. Just some small words before I will close. You are here also as part of Studio Europe Maastricht. I'm very proud of Studio Europe Maastricht. Studio Europe has several objectives, and one is much to stimulate citizen dialogue that there are when we talk about Europe, and also our younger generations that should really have their voice in how the future will be built. Because in the end, I'm really very much interested what you are considering to be the right direction to go, whether it's trying to deal with this COVID pandemic, whether it's about digitalization, whether it's about climate, and it will very much involve your generation. So it's important that you raise your voice, because you have an enormous influence on policymakers, especially if you unite yourself, if you combine, and if your group becomes bigger and bigger, then also policymakers and legislators will have to listen to you. So that's also why I truly believe that initiatives like this one are so important. And I'm also absolutely proud that you are willing to commit your time to this. I mean, you could have also been watching Netflix. You're doing that too much anyway, but you're doing this. You're sitting here, you're willing to invest your time and your brains. I'm really proud of that you're doing that. And so on behalf of Studio Europe Maastricht and Maastricht University, I'm very, very grateful that you're doing this. I'm looking forward to also listening later on in your program to the results, so that we can also take that on in our own further developments in the university. And most of all, what I really wish is that you can come to Maastricht, and that we can really show what a beautiful city it is. And I wish you best of luck, and enjoy also these few days. You will I've seen the program, it's really very inspirational. And thank you for listening to me. And I look forward, if you have any questions. I thought there were maybe a few minutes, but that's always difficult with so many people in the Zoom, but I'm willing to answer any questions you might want to pose to me. Thank you so much. I go back to you, Tim.
Thank you, Rianne. Yes, wanted to also have a comment on the fact that, yes, I'm also Zooming from my own living room in Finland. It's again, a bit weird aspect for me as well, as a person that's done lots of UIP for 11 years and lots of different conferences, and also the fact that Maastricht, it's such a beautiful city and we're not there, so it's a bit sad. But the organizers are also there now, most of them, and they try to show the best of Maastricht for all of us. And also wanted to build upon the fact that you mentioned the Studio Europa. We will have a workshop on Studio Europa on Monday, and that will be interesting, and all of the participants will be taking part of it, and that will be fantastic. Yes, if we have 2 questions. We have time for 2 questions. So if there's 2 questions that we could, if someone has for Rianne, we could definitely have them, if anyone has any. Maybe post them on Zoom in the chat. If there's any 2 questions, we'll take them on. Give a minute or 2 if anyone's writing down.
You're doing great, Tim. Because it is very difficult, especially with so many people.
Yes, exactly. It's over 100 people also in this Zoom. 115. It's really, really different atmosphere. But yeah, again, everyone's in the same position. It's not only me, it's you, and it's all the other students as well. So we're all. I'm
gonna take a picture now, okay? I'm a real selfie junkie, social media. So let's just all wave, and then I will post it later, okay? Wonderful. So if you have any privacy issues, you should say it now. Then I will not post it.
We have a question for you in the chat. We have actually 3 questions. Maybe we'll have them and that's it. The first one is, do you think there is any aspect of digital learning we should definitely keep?
Yes, actually I do. What I've learned, and I've actually learned it from the students as well. And there's also research underlying that, by the way. But the traditional big lectures that we give, depending on who is doing the lecture, because you can have really very inspirational lecturers that students will listen to for 1.5 hours. But we also know the lecturer that you think, well, maybe you should limit the time that you're now giving this lecture. And with that group of teachers, there the students say we really enjoy the video lectures that we can also watch back or move forward, or the knowledge clips, as we call it, so that when you are studying, you can also really go back to the material, which we at Maastricht we didn't do many video lectures. So that was considered to be really something to keep also for the future.
Thank you. And there's a second question that says that how did the pandemic influence the international students in Maastricht?
Oh, very much. Oh, very much. This is, can you imagine that if you are a Dutch student and there's suddenly this lockdown, you have your family and your friends, whether you live in Maastricht or in the Netherlands, we are a very tiny country, as many of you know, you can go back home and you have that network and that social warmth around you. And if you are an international student from far away, and then you're stuck in Maastricht, and stuck, I mean stuck with everything closed and nowhere to go and one person that you can invite, that can put you in a really big isolation. And that's also what happens. And we've tried very much with well-being activities and also with online activities to make sure that, especially the first years that don't really know anyone yet, that they at least have a chance to meet each other. But I've also realized after the first lockdown that doing more and more digital activities is also at some point not in the interest of students anymore, because they're doing digital the whole day already. So they really long for physical activity. So then we launched a walking app where students could meet other students without knowing them and then go for one-by-one walk in the city or outside of the city. And we had like, I think 1,100 students register within a week. So that shows already that doing more digital pop quizzes, whatever we've done, that's over. Now it's time also for the international students that we try to have creative ideas to do physical activities. So it's been very hard for the international students. Also financially, I must say, because many of them have jobs in the city. And then of course the leisurement bars, cafes, restaurants closed. So they also lost their jobs. And then you have to pay the rent and your tuition fee and your food. So it's a big concern.
That's very true. The last question, there was 4, but now I'm gonna cut it to 3. I'm sorry. The 4th one was also balancing with the second one with the influence. But the third question that we have is that we don't, Sabina wrote that we don't get to be in Maastricht now, obviously, in physical atmosphere. So could you describe the atmosphere of the city for everyone who hasn't been there before?
No, I'm an addict by now, because I live half of the week in Maastricht and the other half I live with the children in another province. And Maastricht is a very beautiful historical town with very old buildings and all the old monasteries we actually bought as a university. So all of the old buildings are now occupied by faculties, which is a good thing. Otherwise, they would have been either empty or not maintained. So don't get me wrong. I think we are taking care of the heritage of the city because of that. We have wonderful restaurants, nice bars, beautiful shops, depending on your wallet, very expensive shops and more accessible shops. And I think also the surroundings of Maastricht, the Limburg province, it has what we call mountains in the Netherlands. You would call them not probably even hills. But it's very beautiful. It's like Tuscany for me as a Dutch person. And so also the surroundings are really nice to cycle and to walk and to have just leisure activities. And it has the best university of the Netherlands, of course. No, the nicest, I would say.
Absolutely. We thank you a lot, Rianne, for joining us to give your note speak and sorry, your note. Yeah, that's it. The notes. Thank you a lot. And
thank you for having me. Enjoy, everyone. Enjoy very much this opportunity to meet and exchange.
Thank you.